it's a lot better than we usually do.
Alright, thumbs up.
Ready, guys?
Let's do this. Leroy Jenkins!
Oh my god, he just ran in.
Hey everybody, and welcome back for the 4th bonus episode of LFR, the casual podcast for casual players of World of Warcraft, where we make the lore of Warcraft more accessible than our bonus episodes, which are very accessible thanks to our amazing patrons. We're your hosts, Sarith
and Dracoris. Thank you for joining us for what is not going to be a dive into lore in the World of Warcraft. LFR usually stands for Looking for Raid, and this week it stands for... I don't know, let's answer some questions. That's not what LFR stands for, but it doesn't matter because it's a bonus episode and I didn't do notes.
Yeah.
So yeah, this week we are we are going to be answering some questions that have been put to us by the good people of Twitter and Discord. And hopefully we're going to have some fun with it. You guys can get to know us a little better, and hopefully this will make for a decent bonus episode. We are hoping that the next bonus episode will be back to having guests on. But this month, with various real life things going on and what have you, scheduling wise, it just made sense to do something with just the two of us. So here it is, nice cozy 2-person bonus episode.
And I believe we do have a guest planned for next month. We just have to schedule it before we announce it.
Yeah, absolutely. All this stuff going on behind the scenes because we're very professional podcast people, obviously.
Yep. Super good at this.
Yeah.
Super good.
Absolutely.
So, should we get right into the questions since it's a bonus episode? We're not going to tell you the news. We're not going to read out any reviews.
There is one bit of news that's worth talking about just because it's fun, which is as of this morning or yesterday, 9.1.5 is a pre-release candidate. So when I looked this morning, it is already downloading in the background on the live client. So I reckon we're going to have 9.1.5 very, very soon.
I'm actually pretty excited for that.
What are you excited for the most with 9.1.5?
I think it's going to make it to where I feel like I can play my alts again.
Yeah.
The catch-up mechanics are a lot better, and I can send stuff from my main to my alts to help them catch up, so...
Yeah.
I'll actually play my alts, and I'm opening the client right now to download that.
Yeah, it's awesome. And I think for me it's two things. One, I'm really looking forward to getting to see the Mage Tower, because, I missed that when it was live.
I did skip... I skipped that when it was live, because I actually skipped a lot of Legion.
Yeah, true.
We were in the process of getting married and buying a house, so...
Of course.
I didn't have a lot of time for Warcraft.
Yeah, I mean, there are things that take precedent, but I'm really excited about it because, I've heard people rave about Mage Tower. So yeah, I'm looking forward to giving that a go on at least one character, and then we'll see how I get on with all the others, because as previously documented, I do kind of suck at this game, and apparently some of the challenges were quite hard. So we'll see. But it's going to be fun to give that a go. And the other thing for me is the customization stuff. Like, I have a Void Elf mage at the moment who, I mean, I love the guy, but he's got tentacles. And it's just a bit, like, if I want tentacles, that's what the Draenei are there for. So I'm quite looking forward to snipping his tentacles and having him be a full-on high elf. Well, that's going to be fun as well.
Can't you do that already? Because my Void Elf Warlock looks like a high elf. The hair is still pretty tentacly.
Yeah, the hair's still tentacly, and you can't get the natural hair colours and stuff that you can with the new customization stuff. So that's going to be fun. We will finally have actual
I'm also looking forward to being able to adjust their ear sizes like you can on the Blood Elves.
Yeah, true. There's a lot going on with the customization stuff. I don't play enough of the allied races to care about some of it, but like the Nightborn hand glow apparently has changed as well, and people seem very happy about that.
Yeah, I'm gonna definitely be playing around with the barbershop on my Nightborn.
Yeah, so that should be fun. So yeah, everybody, if you haven't already got that downloading in your client in the background, go and get it going. But yeah, news-wise, I think that was about it, and so I suppose we should jump into...
Well, I'll do a shameless plug for the Catalina Wine Mixer,
okay,
since I'm actually on the progression team now.
Ooh, check you out.
We are working on Sylvanas, although I don't think we'll have her down by the next time we record, because that'll probably be next week for Arthas Part 3. And we're not actually doing progression this week. We're re-clearing up to Sylvanas. So next week, hopefully we're killing that undead, evil banshee woman.
I thought you were going to say something else starting with B then, and I was like, no, Garrosh, back off.
I was debating it, but I was like, that's too much.
They've taken it out of the game. They've taken that out of the game. Deal with it. But yeah. So we do have a bunch of questions, which is nice, because there's always a worry, isn't there, when you put something like that out into the ether, you say, come on, everybody, give us some questions for a Q&A. You always worry a little bit that it's just going to be crickets and silence. But no, we didn't have to resort to plants in the audience or anything. We got some actual questions, which is great. And
pretty quickly, too. I want to say our first couple of questions came in, like, within minutes of you asking for questions.
Yeah, they did. And actually, our first couple of questions were from Scissorlord, one of our patrons. And I mean, these are two very, very good questions as well. So I hope you've done some preparation for these.
I am going in nearly blind.
This will be fun.
I read them once when they were first posted and promptly forgot.
Excellent. Doing it live, people. Doing it live. So Scissorlord had two questions, and his first one was, how many chickens would it take to kill an elephant?
Now, are these like Zelda chickens? Because I think 10 of those could just strip an elephant.
I'm thinking real world chickens, dude.
If we're going real world chickens, I'm going to say probably about 40 to 50. Because they're going to have to work from the ground up. They don't really fly. They're not going to get high enough to do a mortal blow easily. So they're going to have to start with the feet until he falls down and then finish him off.
Cool. I think you're taking the approach of how many chickens would it take if they all ganged up to beat up and kill an elephant, right? I read this slightly differently. I'm like you say, how many bricks would it take to build a wall, right? How many chickens would I need to kill an elephant? And I'm thinking I don't know, one in each eye. I'm going to say two. I'm going to say properly aimed from a cannon, 2 chickens. Yeah. And Scissorlord's second question was, which mythical creature would improve the world the most if it existed?
So this one I did remember, because I was debating it. Mm-hmm. I was between dragons, because they're awesome.
True.
And unicorns, because they actually have good magical properties, at least in Harry Potter, which is basically what I'm basing this off of. Dragons, though, have the tendency to breathe fire and fucking eat people. Not great.
True.
Unicorns don't do that, so I'm gonna go with unicorns. Oh. I think, and they're just fucking cool.
I mean, that is
my daughter would be so happy if unicorns existed.
Yeah.
That's making the world better right there.
I was just going to say that is a real girl dad answer. That is the answer of someone who has got somebody in the house who loves unicorns. And yeah, I mean, I think the sun would shine out of my backside to my daughter if I was the person who brought unicorns into the world. That's a pretty good reason for that one, to be fair. But see, the way I thought about this was my first immediate answer would have been leprechauns.
Ooh.
Just because, ready source of gold, right? Solve world poverty in an instant with lots of leprechauns. But then I figure
or just, make massive inflation and then all of a sudden this is my thought.
So I thought it was a great idea, but people suck. And so if you did that, what would actually happen is all the governments in the world would have rounded up the leprechauns and, used them to death years ago. So we'd still be in the same position we're in now, except perhaps the rich people would be richer. So maybe leprechaun wasn't the best idea, but that was my first thought. And then I went to dragons, because I figure there are a couple of different types of dragon out there, right? It depends on what kind of media you're consuming and how they view things and what have you. I mean, you're thinking European style dragon might burn everything to the ground and stuff. I'm thinking Dragon Ball Z dragon. Wishes would be cool. But also, if we get dragons, can we get all dragons? So, yes, in Wales, there are the big green and red scaled things burning knights to a crisp, and that's, kind of funny as long as you avoid whales. But then, you've also got the Asian dragons, the sea serpents. You've got every possible kind of permutation of dragon that could be in the world. And then you've got the fact that if they were still alive now, if they were a thing that were live today, how much would they confuse archaeologists looking for dinosaur bones? That shit would just be hilarious as far as I'm concerned. Oh, look, we've discovered a new form of dinosaur. Oh, no, wait, it's just a dragon. Okay.
Another fucking dragon.
So I think they would improve the world the most, if for no other reason than the news would be a lot more interesting, right? Like
that's true.
And people would need to divert their resources to deal with dragons, and that could be fun as well. There might be a good reason for countries to maintain a standing army as opposed to just killing each other.
I'm going to add in another quick answer to this one. He's not quite a mythical creature, I guess. I forget the exact word for it, but well, he's a god. I'm reading the Iron Druid Chronicles for the third time now, and I'm going to say Gubnu, because why would you not want a god who's a blacksmith and a brewer?
Dude, I'm just gonna throw something out here because I don't know. Have you ever visited Ireland?
No.
Oh, okay. So there's a very real possibility that Guvnu just does exist, because I have met a great many people who could quite easily just be him passing. There are some absolutely amazing brewers out there, and I wouldn't be at all surprised if the way Irish and Celtic mythology works generally is that their gods tended to be folk heroes who were lifted up to the sort of position of god, as opposed to like just pre-existent deities. And yeah, I mean, if any of that shit were real, I have no doubt whatsoever that they would still be hanging around, and that we wouldn't know about it because it'd just be funny to them,
I've almost started to be like I've read them through them now. Like I said, I'm at book 8 on the third read through, to be like almost believing that book is real and just every pantheon is fucking real.
I think it's the best approach. I think especially like what they call it, urban fantasy, don't they? The kind of more modern fantasy genre. I think the best approach to take with that kind of stuff is always that everything is real, because one, you don't run the risk of like offending one particular subset of reader who might be pissed off that their stuff isn't included. But two, like, why wouldn't you want more options in the world? I think it's a much more fun thing to assume that everyone's right than it is to assume that nobody is.
It's the best minor character in that series is Rebecca Dane, because she just believes in every pantheon.
Yeah, I think that's kind of an author avatar thing going on there. Honestly, if any of our listeners haven't read the Iron Druid Chronicles and like, reading things, you should go and check them out. They're a book series by Kevin Hearn, urban fantasy stuff, and it's really cool. His druids are definitely inspired by Warcraft druids as well. You can see it.
And if you like playing through Ardenweald with the Night Fae, there's a lot. The Fae are quite different, but there's a lot of Fae in there.
Yeah, a
lot of fairies.
I think both the Fae in the series that Sarith's talking about and some of the naming conventions and stuff that Warcraft used with the Night Fae are very similar. They've definitely drawn a lot from Celtic mythology generally. So yeah, it is an interesting series to read, keeping that in the back of your head as well. So thanks a lot to Sizzlelord for those 2 questions. I thought they were great, and a really good way to kick off the show.
Yeah, we already got off on a good tangent. That was great. This is good.
Tangents. So the great thing about tangents is that I think they can be the natural ally of a podcaster, but they can also be their worst enemy, especially for us, because generally speaking, we have like a 50-minute to an hour window to record our shows in. And it's like, if we go off on too many tangents, we're not going to hit the marks that we're supposed to hit. So it's quite nice for us to be able to hit some tangents today and relax a little bit.
Yeah. There's times in our regular episodes where I'm just staring at the time in the bottom corner of my screen like, are we going to get this through? Looking at the notes, staring at the time.
You're starting to sound like Lou. No. So, next question is from the Kunker, again via Discord. And he said, what is your favourite planet and why? In real life and Azeroth. I
think I might...
No, go on.
I might go ahead and just say Azeroth itself, because outside of Earth, that's probably the planet I've spent the most time on. And there's just like, it's really a beautiful planet. Like just the different like areas up in Northrend, just areas in Kalimdor. I haven't spent much time in the Eastern Kingdoms, but I guess I am an Alliance main now, so I should probably do that.
You should rectify that, yeah. dirty hoarding. I think Azeroth's aesthetics have been thrown off slightly by the big fuck off sword sticking out the side of it, personally. I think kind of Azeroth pre-Sargeras would have definitely got my vote. I think other than that, though, I think in sort of the Warcraft universe, I think I'm a big fan of Draenor. Actual Draenor, not Outland. Just beautiful, lovely scenery and lovely aesthetics generally. And the fact that you do have the duality of also being able to visit it as Outland, it's pretty cool. And that's not something that you get in many video games or intellectual properties. The opportunity to visit a world both when it's whole and when it's destroyed. And I think that's a really cool dichotomy that we have available to us in WoW. I think in the real world, my favourite planet is probably Saturn, just because those rings are bitching. It's the only one for me that, like, even as a little kid, I could always pick out of the crowd. You've got the vague idea of like what colour they all are, and sure, you can sort of separate them by size and what have you. But like Saturn's the one where you're like, okay, that's Saturn. It's got the recognisable profile with the rings and what have you. So I think that's it for me. I think I go Draenor in game and Saturn in real life.
Yeah, I'll agree with Saturn in real life.
And the second question the Kunka had for us was, what would a Magar Orc say to a Lightforged Draenei because of the Lightbound taking over their planet? And I mean, I kind of... At first I thought that was the start of a joke, like a knock-knock joke or something like that. Why did the chicken cross the road? What did the Magar Orc say to the Lightforged Draenei? And I'll be honest, I put a bit of time into trying to think of a good punchline for that, and I struggled. But I think it would be an interesting question, an interesting interaction to see. And I think it's hurt by the fact that in-game we don't have that many characters in either of those races that we're supposed to really care about. Like, the Lightforged Draenei, I think if you ask me to name a Lightforged Draenei, I'm going to come out with Topatos, and that's about it. And that's only because of his really cool... Have you ever done the Lightforged Draenei scenario? The one to unlock them? Yeah. So Topatos is amazing, and sticks in my head because of that. But other than him, I'm not sure I could name another Lightforged Draenei without Googling it. And there's Yrel as well, I suppose. And then in terms of the Magar Orcs, again, you've got, Thrall's not sister... whatever whose name I can't even...
Yara.
Yeah, there you go. Well, I was going to have to look that up. And other than that, you've got Garrosh, who's now dead, and didn't really think of himself as a Magar anyway. And that's about it. I don't think I could name another Magar Orc off the top of my head.
Yeah, well, yeah, and I mean, I guess the issue with the Magar Orcs is, too, all of them before they became a playable race are just rehashed versions of the original Orcs.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So it's different, but
yeah.
I think this would be a really interesting thing to see play out in game, because I think, especially if the Magar Orcs, even if they did know that these are different Lightforged Draenei, they'd be like, I think they'd be real irritated to see. I think they might just come straight to blows. They might not even
they might not
say anything. They just might,
yeah.
guttural yell and charge.
And I think the interesting thing as well is when you look at what happened in the Prime timeline, you've got, the Orcs subjugated the Draenei on Draenor. And now you've got this alternate timeline where the Lightforged Draenei are subjugating the Magar on Draenor. And there are parallels and there are reflections there. And it would be really interesting to see. I think the job that Blizzard would have to do first is rehabilitate some of these characters to make us give a shit about them. Like, I need there to be a Lightforged Draenei character and a Magar Orc character that I care about for them to have this conversation and for it to matter. And at the moment, there isn't, really.
Yeah. I just think, too, like... Then it starts to question, like, is the light one entity that stretches between these timelines? Like, is the light on alternate Draenor the same light that we see on Azeroth? Mm-hmm. And is it having them do that on Draenor? In which case, are the Magar Orcs justified in saying, no, fuck off?
And this is part of why I know a lot of other podcasters, disagree with or find a little bit stinky. The idea that, the ropes thing about the afterlife. The idea that, the alternate Gul'dan and current Gul'dan can't meet each other in the Shadowlands because they are two strands of the same rope, and therefore there will only be one Gul'dan in Shadowlands. Not that we've even seen one yet. But, that idea generally always seemed a bit iffy to me. And I think the reason it seemed iffy to me is because it just doesn't make a lot of sense. Like, how does that work with the light? If you've got the light on Alternate Draenor and the light on Azeroth and the light on Outland or whatever, coming via various Naru, for example, like, think about Zera. Is there an alternate Zera and a main timeline Zera? How different are they? What happens when if there are two Zeras, an alternate and a main one, what happens with them? Are they subsumed into one whole in whatever the light version of the afterlife is? Who knows? And that's what makes it tricky, is it's all well and good to say that we mortals are strands in a rope or whatever, but it kind of stops checking out once you start thinking about the other areas, the not so much pantheons, but like the light realm or whatever. Are there going to be multiple Zeras kicking it there? Who knows? So yeah, it's...
And that's the thing too, is like these spanning ones. Like, we already know the Burning Legion spans both the alternate Draenor and Azeroth, that it's the same Legion, so...
Supposedly.
I would think, like, the Shadowlands and the Eternal ones, those are the same. So it's just what makes reality different. Yeah,
and these elements that interact with reality, how does that work? Like the light, like you say. And the Void, maybe this is why the Void have their 1,000 whispers. Maybe they're going batshit because they're thinking about what happens in a bunch of different timelines. Possibly. But yeah, so I'm sorry we haven't quite got a straight answer for you on the what does a Mag'har Orc say to a Lightfall's Draenei, Kunkka, but hopefully it kind of explains why. It's a really tricky one to answer, partly because we don't really know the characters well enough, and also partly because there might not be any words involved in that kind of exchange. We then had a question in from Sky Shrouder. We actually had multiple questions in from Sky Shrouder. But the first thing he said was he wanted to add to Scissorlord's question about the mythical creatures. And he said, which mythical creature would absolutely fuck the world up if it existed? Which is another good one. I mean, I think, to be honest, I think people are doing a good enough job of fucking the world up that any mythical creature is going to struggle to hold a candle to us.
Yeah.
But if you were going to go for it, for me, I think I would go for something like... It's really hard not to come back to dragons again just because of the firepower, to be honest.
Yeah.
It really is. Yeah.
I'm also thinking about trolls because they're so hard to take down. Like, you're thinking of trolls like the big burly, like not World of Warcraft trolls, but the big burly trolls with the really thick skin carrying around a club just smashing shit.
I was thinking about the little toys with the pink hair. Those trolls.
So I'm thinking of those trolls, or like a chimera, and or not a chimera, a manticore. I mean, and they're just outwitting you and fucking poisoning
honestly,
you.
With that kind of stuff, maybe when you go mythical creatures, you include the likes of vampires and stuff, and I think maybe that would be the best answer.
Ooh.
Because...
werewolves?
Yeah, I think at least...
But I think vampires are more destructive.
Yeah, I would say so, especially with the kind of insidious nature of it, depending on what kind of vampires you go with. If you go classic Dracula style, there is mind control involved there. Hell, maybe that explains our current political leadership. Maybe vampires are a thing. Who knows? Boris Johnson certainly looks like someone's been sucking his blood. He's very pasty. So yeah, actually, no, I'm going vampires on that one.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree. And if there's not another episode of this podcast, you know why.
Yeah, the vampires got to Sarif. And
well, you brought it up. They're going to get you first.
No, they'll get you, and I'm too...
And it's going to be nighttime for you before it is for me.
They'll get you, and then I'll be too lazy to ever learn to edit, and that's why the podcast will stop. So Sky Shrouder then went on to ask a bunch of other questions. He said, if you had to add one character from Horde and Alliance, so 2 total, to become playable legendary characters for a dungeon scenario, who would it be and why?
So it's going to be the same dungeon. You're going to be able to do it from both sides. It's going to be Orgrim Doomhammer and Anduin Lothar. And you're just going to fucking fight. And it's going to be epic. Because, A, that scene needs to be in the game. And B, why would you not want to be two of the biggest badasses on either side?
I think that's a pretty amazing answer. I like that.
And I think Jin's going to agree with me. Except he won't want to play as Orgrim Doomhammer, but...
Now, I think something very similar actually would be pretty cool. But I'm trying to think about who the best characters would be to use for it. I'm thinking that it would be pretty cool, and I know this has already taken place in Warcraft 3, but it would be nice to get it in WoW as well. It would be pretty cool to be able to do the whole Death of Dalen Proudmoore thing. So Dalen Proudmoore was very much in the Alliance at that point, and I would be going Dalen Proudmoore, and I would be going Rexxar.
That would be fun.
I think you could make that a lot more cinematic and climactic than it was in Warcraft 3. I think you could have a lot of fun with that in the WoW game engine.
Can you just play the Jaina role and sit back and watch? Bye, Dad.
Just press Q repeatedly to whisper secrets in the Horde's ear. Yeah, so I think that's our answers for that. Sky Strider then asked which character wears their dress the best, and he said he was asking this for Lou's benefit. Who wears a dress the best? I mean, honestly, I think the person who wears a dress the best in World of Warcraft would have to be... Brother Pike. Yeah. I'm going with Brother Pike. He rocks that.
Oh, my Warlock wears a dress all the time, and he looks pretty good doing it, so that's my answer. My Warlock.
Fair enough. Yeah, Brother Pike. Hopefully one of the 9.1.5 customization options will give him like a knee-length dress so we can finally check out those calves. Now, he then went on to ask, what is your single greatest achievement in life? He then added in parentheses to stop both of us from taking the easy way out and basically told us not to say our kids. So kudos on that one there, Sky Strider. My answer for that is less a single greatest achievement and more the most interesting thing I've done. And it's only interesting from the perspective of someone who gives a shit about obscure points of UK law. But essentially, something that I did at work years and years ago was I won a test case that made it law in this country that if you... so if you imagine like a supermarket or a grocery store or something, and you imagine somebody on one of those little... not sure if you use the same name for it in the States, but like the motorised scooters, like the... the sort of things I mean. Mobility scooters, we call them here. So a little old lady riding on one of those crashes into somebody in the middle of a grocery store. In this country now, thanks to something I did, that is officially a road traffic accident. Yeah, it makes absolutely no sense unless you were involved in the 3-hour court hearing that decided it, or the documents prepared as a result of that. But so yeah, that's the most interesting thing I've achieved outside of my family, and I'm going to take that as my single greatest achievement, just because of how many lawyers, judges, and pedants it pissed off at the time.
Shit. Well, mine's going to be very boring compared to that, but. Mine would probably be, I'm going to go with 2. And it's not my kids. It's not getting married because Sky Shrouder took out all the easy ones. Thanks,
you mean all the true ones, right? All the true ones.
So mine will both be CrossFit related, so deal with it. But the first one would be the distinct memory of the first time I back squatted over 300 pounds. And the second one would be the first time I deadlifted over 300 pounds.
Wow.
Because those were both fucking journeys to get to.
I mean, that is a lot of weight.
Yeah, that's more than me.
I struggle to wrap my head around how big 300 pounds is, other than to know that it's the weight that like commentators use to make us realise that fat wrestlers are impressive. So like you benched a fat wrestler, and that's impressive to me.
So my back squat in kilograms, the max I've done is 142.8 kilos.
Wow.
And my deadlift is 147.4.
So if anybody doubts that Sarith is in fact the one carrying this podcast, I can assure you that he is the only one of the two of us capable of carrying heavy weights. Right. That's pretty impressive. Remind me never to mess with you if we meet up in person. So,
I mean, my arms are far less strong than my legs, so just don't be in kicking range.
Sarith the bush kangaroo. Got it. So the next question we had in was from Mud. And he said, what other podcasts would you suggest for people who are starting to listen to podcasts about WoW? He also specifically said this is not a shameless hope for a plug as we don't count while on hiatus. Sorry, suck it, Mud, you're getting a plug. You should go check out Gratz, which is Mud's podcast based on achievements. They are currently on hiatus while he's been moving and what have you. But it's a great show and you should go listen to it. Now, in terms of other podcasts generally, at the moment I'm one of the worst people to ask, and the reason for that is just because work has been so busy recently that I have not had time, and I'm actually massively behind on listening to anything. The only podcasts that I am up to date on at the moment, apart from our own, are actually both, well, one is Ali's podcast Dungeon Fables and the other is Jin and Ali's podcast Live Laugh Lore. And those are the only two podcasts that are still running that I'm currently up to date with. There are a bunch of really good WoW podcasts out there, and my main suggestion, aside from whatever Sarith's going to have for you, is that you check out the Warcraft Radio Directory, because when you go on there on the front page, it automatically sorts by new. So what you get is the latest WoW podcasts to have been released at the top of the list, which I think is pretty amazing. And it allows you to kind of have a look and see who is still going and who is producing regular content. And there will be something on there for you. You know, there are a lot of podcasts out there at the moment. My sincerest hope, honestly, is that once I start my new job in January, I might have a little bit more time to catch up on podcasts. Because there are some amazing creators out there who do deserve the support and do deserve the listens and the downloads and what have you. And actually, I feel like I've been a little bit lax in my support over the last few months.
Yeah, I definitely was going to mention both Dungeon Fables and Live Laugh Lore. Jin and Ali are both terrific podcasters, and really this show would not exist without both of them. They both gave us a lot of tips as we were getting started, and we wouldn't have met without Jin making Morally Grey. So I definitely recommend those. They are great shows, great people. And then I'm going to throw two other shows in as well. For Azeroth with Manny and Jared is a great show. Manny and Jared are both awesome people. I can't say enough how great of a show and great people they are. And they did a lot of really good episodes around the lawsuit when it was all first breaking out. Mm-hmm. And it was making sure they gave voices. They did the same thing we did. It wasn't just two males talking to each other about it. They brought in women voices and different perspectives, which I think says a lot about a show.
I will say as well that there was an episode of For Azeroth, we're probably going back to a year or so ago now, maybe more, but Manny did a solo episode of For Azeroth, talking about the issues basically that he's faced as a person of colour in the content creation sphere. And that's a really important, really interesting episode to go and listen to. I have to apologise to both Jared and Manny because I am currently behind on their show. I haven't listened to the last 3 episodes, I think, which is why I didn't bring them up. But yeah, that's a very, very good shout.
And then the other one I'm going to bring up, and they just came back from hiatus after the lawsuit, is The Third Faction with Demi and Bricko. Obviously, you guys have heard Demi on our show in one of our bonus episodes. But Demi and Bricko are awesome people, and their show, I mean, you're going to talk about WoW on there, but you're also going to more so learn about the community.
Yeah, one thing about
the
Third
great
Faction,
people in the community.
One thing about Third Faction is they are stepping away from WoW content recently. So their guests are now going to be from a broader sphere of kind of gaming generally. So there will be less of the WoW community on Third Faction, I think, going forward. But it's still, absolutely a show worth listening to.
And that's what I get for being an episode or two behind.
Yeah.
But still definitely worth listening to, so.
Absolutely. I also have to throw in a plug there for our buddies over at I was just about to say DNR then, but it's Another Pod Do Not Relent is the full title. Yeah, they've been going for a long time, a hell of a lot longer than us, and they are pretty damn good for, one, keeping up with like current content and talking about that kind of stuff, and two, just they're a hell of a lot of fun to listen to. Really, really fun podcast, and one of those that I tend to put on in the background while I'm working as like a really good background listen. Really, really great guys. Definitely worth going and listening to them and throwing them some support as well.
Oh, and one more from me too. You got Torrin and the Goblin with Nick and Katie.
Mm-hmm, absolutely.
That's another excellent podcast. We actually guested on that one.
Yeah, we did.
That was a while ago. That was pre 9-1.
Yeah, that was good fun as well. But no, absolutely. Nick and Katie do an amazing job. And again, this is the reason we're coming up with these things at the last minute is because at the moment, me specifically, I've been behind on my listening. And some of these names would spring more readily to mind where we're actually looking at my podcast app every day as opposed to once every 2 weeks.
And once my commute got shorter, I fell so far behind on basically every show.
Well, my commute's going to go from non-existent to 2 hours in January. So I'm going to have a little bit more time to listen to things. Okay. So Mud had a second question for us. Thank you for that first one, Mud. That was great. His second question was, which half races would you like to see playable in-game? He then said, human is not allowed as one of the halves. and that's...
For me, that one's pretty easy. I would love to see the Mach Nathal.
Wow.
I think it's also horde bias, but I think the Mach Nathal would be really fun.
I think the thing with Mach Nathal is it falls into the same bracket as all the allied races do, which is that it should just be a customization option. Like, you should just be able to make your orc really fucking big and and be done with it, because as great as they are, and I agree with you, the Mach Nathal's a great idea. Look at like Kultiran. Kultirans are just big humans. Come on,
right?
Mechanomes are just gnomes.
Yeah, but I think that's the thing with Mach Nathal is they're a separate species than, elves and elves or orcs and brown orcs. Like,
I guess they are, but then they're also kind of not. Like, look at Garona. You wouldn't necessarily advocate for Garona to be considered a different species, and she's half orc, half Draenei.
That's true.
I mean, honestly, if I wanted a half orc, half Draenei, I'd want them to actually look like a half orc, half Draenei. Like, I'd want the hinge. I'd want the
tentacle
hinge.
chin.
Yeah, I'd want a tentacle chin. I'd want hinged legs. I'd want goat legs. Damn it. And that's always kind of bugged me because the original plan with Garona was always that she would be half human, and then they changed their mind about that when they realised it made no sense because there were no humans on Draenor. It was a massive continuity clusterfuck there, and I can't believe that when they retconned that they did, and that was a retcon. People talk about when to use that word properly. That was an absolute retcon because it says in The Last Guardian that Garona is half human, and like I'm just, why didn't they change her model when they retconned that to make her actually look like a Draenei, even a little bit,
They could have just made her more blue and gotten away with it.
Yeah, or, hinge her legs, come on. Grow a pair. Goat legs, do it. But yeah, so I think that, and for me, that was where I was going to go. I was going to say half orc, half Draenei, just because they'd look interesting, but also because it would give you the opportunity to perhaps have them go somewhere in the middle like the Pandaren, and be able to choose either side on the faction war, and that would be interesting to me. Short of that, and I'm saying short of that for a reason, yes, I'm attempting a pun, I'd quite like to see, like, I don't know, half gnome, half goblin or something.
Ooh. Well, I mean, there is a gnome and goblin couple in the lore.
Exactly, yes, there is. So yeah, half gnome, half goblin, just to see what the hell that would look like in the end. That would be quite good fun.
I would also love like a half dragon and anything else, just because I want to play a dragon.
Honestly, it would be quite good fun to just pair up the ones that are thematically similar. Like, I would quite like to go half Tor and half Worgen and just see what the hell comes out of that.
I was going to say we do have a dragon and human couple, but Mud said no humans, so...
Yeah, absolutely.
I guess he doesn't ship Kalik and Jaina.
I don't think anyone ships Kalik and Jaina, including Kalik and Jaina. I get the distinct impression that not even Jaina ships Kalik and Jaina. But yeah, so...
I still ship... even though Agra is awesome, I still kind of ship Jaina and Thrall.
I think everyone ships Jaina and Thrall. I think Jaina ships Jaina and Thrall. I'm not sure Thrall's quite on board yet, but we'll see. There's plenty of time for something bad to happen to Agra, unfortunately.
Ooh. Don't wish that on Agra.
I'm not wishing it on her, I just wouldn't be at all surprised, that's all.
Thrall's already lost his mom. Well, he got her back, kinda.
Briefly. For now. The portal's still going to be there.
He hasn't made it out of the Shadowlands yet.
He can go back to Maldraxxus. The portal will always be there, right? Right?
Game mechanics.
Game mechanics. So that is all the questions that we got on Discord, but we did also have some via Twitter. So one of them is from my lovely other half, Lou. And she asked, what would Arthas have on a pizza?
Hay and alfalfa. Honestly, I would say sausage is probably like the closest to anything they'd actually have on Azeroth.
Yeah.
But I think hay and alfalfa is a better answer.
It certainly is. Yeah, I think that's a very good answer. I think in terms of what would Arthas have in his pizza, sugar cubes. He wouldn't be eating the pizza, he'd be using it to lure a horse in. Yeah, that's the best I've got for you, I'm afraid. Thanks for that, Lee. We also have a question from Breeza, who is at BreezeSaveLars on Twitter. She asked us, who would you rather fight, one Garrosh-sized Murloc or dozens of Murloc-sized Garroshes?
Ooh.
I'm gonna go one Garrosh-sized Murloc. I like my chances better against one big Murloc than I do against a dozen Garroshes, however big they are. If you put Garrosh up against, say, a Fellreaver or something, I think he'd kill it. So I think if you put 12 Garroshes against a Fellreaver, he'd definitely kill it, which means 12 Murloc-sized Garroshes would definitely kill me.
That's a very good point. I'm just like picturing now Garrosh in the cinematic in Sanctum of Domination, and he one-shot the boss that 20 of us were trying to kill.
Yep.
So, yeah, I'm going to agree with you.
Big Murloc.
I can kill a Murloc. Garrosh is a little harder, even when he's already dead.
Tell you what I'd least like to fight, though, is a Garrosh.
Wait, are we talking about, like, after Sanctum Garrosh? Am I just fighting 12 Murloc-sized pile of ash? Because I can handle that.
So what I would least like
Let me get the Hoover.
What I would least like to fight is a normal-sized Garrosh, but dubbed over with Murloc voice lines. Because I wouldn't be able to stop laughing long enough to fight him, you know? Like, you run in, and instead of his voice line, you know, whatever it is he says to Thrall about the pathetic elements abandoning him or something, he opens his mouth, and his mouth moves the same way as if he's saying that, but all you hear is... Are you telling me that you would be able to remember your rotation with that going on? Because I would not. I think I broke Suri. Sorry, guys. So thank you very much for that one, Breezer. That was fun. We then have a question from @RonnieBean, who says, Netflix commission a Warcraft series. Which expansion should it be set in? He then also said, this is Netflix, so remember the series will be cancelled after 3 seasons.
All right, that's fair. That's going to change my answer a little bit. Because originally I was going to say, no, we're starting at Warcraft 1.
Yeah,
Actually, we may have started before Warcraft 1. We may have started with Rise of the Horde. But if we are getting 3 seasons, we're probably starting at Warcraft 3. Season 1 could be Warcraft 3 and the Frozen Throne. Season 2 can encompass basically all of Classic and Burning Crusade, because ain't shit happened. And Season 3 is Wrath of the Lich King, and then we have a satisfying wrap-up.
I think that's pretty solid, especially because you end with the massive cliffhanger. Like, you can finish Wrath of the Lich King and then end with, like, Deathwing Awakening. And if that doesn't...
end with Sylvanas jumping off of Icecrown.
No, you end with Sylvanas jumping off
Icecrown. And just the last scene is her doing the Game of Thrones fucking Tommen whooping out of the window.
Well, no, this thing, you do that, you see her body shatter on the Saronite, and then the camera pans down through the ground, and we go from, like, the blue iciness of that to slowly dimming to a red, and then you just start to see Deathwing stir, and then that's it, boom, end credits. And if that doesn't get them renewed for a full series, I'd be very surprised.
Ah, fuck. Netflix, hire us now. We got this.
And it shows that, like, you know, the threat in the world...
We just broke Squid Game's record. Let's go.
Well, it shows that the threat in the world isn't gone, and that there's more to come. And even if they end on the cliffhanger, it's like, wow, these people are going to have adventures forever. You know? It's good. It doesn't wrap it up completely, and it probably forces the execs to give you another season. Honestly, if I was commissioning any kind of Netflix Warcraft-based series, I would be tempted to take, like, an Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. approach, and so kind of ignore the main shit that's going on. And I would be tempted to, like, have some original characters who are just kind of people on the ground, and have them kind of weave in and out of the various actual real storylines that were going on. You know, like a Stormwind Guards series or something. Could be pretty cool, depending on when you set it and what you decided to do with it. Even following Flynn and Shaw around doing Exploring Azeroth.
I was just going to say, what if we had a show that followed, like, Matthias Shaw and Flynn Fairwind or something?
You could do a whole season with the Exploring Azeroth book, and then you could do another one with the Kalimdor one that's coming out later this year.
Ellie would lose her shit.
It would be great, and also more representation, which is good. So yeah, I think that's my answer. As much as I like yours, and I think yours is probably the money, I think yours is the way to approach it. But I think if you were just doing a limited Netflix series, I would probably, especially if you were doing as a broader thing, like an MCU type thing, where, like, you get them to make movies out of the expansions, and then you do a series just kind of weaving in and out around it with, like, lower level characters, you know? That's where I would probably do, like, Matthias Shaw and Flynn Fairwind. And I would do the upcoming one with Rexar and, God, what's Zappy Boy's real name? Zekhan, is it?
Zekhan.
Yeah. I think that's where the money is on that Netflix series, just kind of exploring these beautiful locations, you know?
That would be really cool.
It would. And so I think that's all of the questions that we actually had via Discord and indeed Twitter.
Yeah, nobody sent anything directly to me, so yeah, I believe you're right.
So that is... No, fuck it, we're 47 minutes in, we've got time for another question. So I'm going to ask you a question, Sarith.
Ooh.
Yeah. If you were to choose the next episode of LFR's subject and prepare the notes yourself and do it on whatever you wanted to do it on, what would you talk about?
Well, I'm not going to say Arthas, because we're doing Arthas Part 3 next anyway. I think I would love to do an episode on the dragon aspects. I think they're probably my favorite part of the lore ever since I really started getting into the lore, reading the War of the Ancients trilogy. I think that would just be a fun episode. I know we've done Alexstrasza, but I think there's enough lore there to where you could kind of do each on their own, especially when we get to Deathwing.
Yep.
But they also feel like all together, they all...
Yep. Yeah, I get it.
So I think that one would be a lot of fun.
I think it would. The only problem with doing that is that it would require you to actually reread, what's it called? Day of the Dragon.
I've never read that one.
That book sucks donkey balls.
I would just go back and listen to Morley Gray's recap of it and be done. Jin already suffered. I don't have to.
This is true. I had to read it for the Alexstrasza episode, and it's really not the best. It's not the worst. Like, as Richard Knack book goes, it's probably one of my favourite. It's certainly a lot better than what was it, Wolfheart or Storm Rage.
I read both of those once, and I don't think I hated them, but they didn't really do anything for me either.
Wolfheart has...
Not books I'll reread.
Yeah, Wolfheart has the massive fight between Varian and Garrosh, which is pretty cool. And other than that, as far as I was concerned, it was like 300 pages of filler. So
yeah, that's what I remember feeling like about them. And, like, just the whole, like, Storm Rage, basically the whole book being written just so Malfurion would wake up. And then he banished the Nightmare, but he only kind of locked him in the Rift of Eln, and they'll be back in an expansion.
Of course.
Just kind of felt very But at the same time, he also killed Xavius like 3 times, and that fucker kept coming back, so he might be worse than Kel Thasad at this point. I spaced on his name.
Xavius is still a really weird one to me, because he was supposed to be like a Fel type bad guy, wasn't he? You know, he was made into a satyr by Sargeras, right?
Mm-hmm.
And yet he's voidy now or something.
Yeah, well, I think they explained that away with when Malfurion turned him into a tree and linked him to the earth.
Mm-hmm.
He got the old god whispers all up in his head, and he was like, yeah, fuck it, I'll help you guys, as long as you let me kill Malfurion, because fuck that guy.
But that was what was weird to me, was like, why would the Void, like, be remotely keen to, like, what's the word I'm looking for, to, like, indulge him on that, you know?
I think he was there.
The Whispers, the Void, the Old Gods, they don't give a flying fuck about Malfurion, surely.
Yeah, but he was also their easy link into the Emerald Dream to start corrupting that, since he was connected to the Earth. I don't know. The Emerald Dream still makes no sense.
No, and I'm hoping that it will once we start getting further into, like, you know, Cosmic Disco War territory. Maybe.
Yeah, I think Jin's dream of going to the Emerald Dream in Shadowlands is kind of dead.
No, I think we go. I think we absolutely go.
See, I think we're getting 9.2 and we're going to stay in the Shadowlands and wrap it up, and then that's it. I don't think we're getting a 9.3. Especially because we got a 9.05 and we're getting a 9.15. I think they're not going to do that last major patch, and we're going to get 0.5 patches in 9.1, 9.2, and then we're going to go to 10.0.
I still think we're getting a 9.3. I do. I think it's just going to be a lot longer until the next expansion than it normally is. If I was Blizzard, I wouldn't be looking to try and sell a new expansion right now. With all the negative press and publicity and what have you. I would be trying to wait for things to die down a bit. And I think the extra cycle of getting 9.3 in there might be worth it, just to let things die down and what have you. I think that's probably the cynical part of it.
Yeah, and I know they're not doing traditional BlizzCon this year,
No.
But we'll have to see what they you know, you might be right. They might just use BlizzCon Line to announce 9.3.
Mm-hmm.
And,
I mean, they haven't even announced.
Well,
9.2.
actually, it might be announcing 9.2 because that's going to be in January again.
They will absolutely be announcing.
And we're not going to be at 9.2 yet.
No, they're going to. They will announce 9.2 at the next BlizzCon line, I think, and then I reckon they'll be announcing 9.3 at the end of the year.
They might do, if they do traditional BlizzCon in November, announce. God, I can't imagine maybe doing a 9.3 and a 10.0 announcement.
I mean, I wouldn't be at all surprised if we don't get a traditional BlizzCon next year either. Not even so much because of COVID, as because of, like, optics, you know? Are people going to have forgotten about the Cosby Suite by next November? No. So, I don't know. If it were me anyway, I would be saying push things back, announce 9.2 at BlizzCon Line this year, announce 9.3 at BlizzCon Line the year after that, and then hope for a proper BlizzCon in 2023, at which point you announce 10.0, whatever the hell that's going to be.
I can't imagine playing a year of each fucking
But I mean, we
patch,
have so
though.
far.
I know. And, like, right now, the only thing keeping me going on 9.1 is that we still haven't gotten AOTC.
Yeah.
That's the only thing.
But yeah, we are what, a couple of weeks away from a year since they announced 9.1. Aren't we?
Well,
Wasn't that November?
Wasn't BlizzCon Line in like
February, wasn't
January?
it? February it was, yeah. First week.
it was after we started the show.
Yeah, you're right. First week in February, last week in January, somewhere around there.
And 9.1 released in like July.
Yeah. But I mean, we're not going to get 9.2 by February.
I could see it by February.
Nah,
I could see it happening in like January.
We're getting 9.1.5 within the next week or two, right? Do we really think that half a patch is only gonna 0.5 patch is only gonna last a couple of months?
Well, they're not really adding like content outside of Legion Time Walking.
Legion Time Walking, there's that.
I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure either, but I don't think it's outside the realm of possibility that we get 9.2 announced at the next BlizzCon line.
Yeah, it's a possibility.
Okie doke. Well, we should probably.
I just felt burnout coming, just talking about that.
Well, I mean, there are a lot of players who've left in the last patch, aren't there? A lot. Mm-hmm. More so. But
it's hard to know how much of that is burnout and how much of that is
other stuff.
Just disgust with Blizzard.
And to be fair, how much of it is other games? You know, a lot of people are playing New World, a lot of people are playing Final Fantasy. You know,
Yep.
Is the thing.
That's I feel like the competition actually becoming a real competition now with Final Fantasy and New World is potentially one of the best things for Warcraft because they can't just phone it in.
Unless
they've kind of gotta do big things again.
I think it's going to be a real test because I think they are going to phone it in a little bit still. And I reckon it's going to be very interesting to see if there aren't major changes. It's going to be interesting to see how many people do come back whenever there's new content and how many don't. Because I think the assumption has always been that people will just come back, you know?
I could see it being phone in for the rest of Shadowlands. Just let's get these new raids, let's just finish out the expansion, but then we're going big for 10.0. But it's hard to know where we're going for 10.0 until we know how they're wrapping up Shadowlands.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? Because 10.0 could be anything at this point. It could be, you know, massive intergalactic cosmic war, which I think will piss a lot of people off and make a lot of people very happy. I think it could be Dragon Isles, which has been my theory from day one. It could be, you know, world revamp, player housing, all that kind of shit. Who knows? And
I know Ian said there wasn't going to be a time skip, but I think they may use a time skip.
There's got to be a time skip. Yeah. Sorry, Jared. But yeah, I think that I absolutely think there's a time skip. But they made so much noise about time not being a construct of the Shadowlands, and you know, Tyrande just jumped in. Why has she been here for a year already, or a week, or whatever it is? You know, Jaina has escaped multiple times despite only being gone for like a day.
Right.
Yeah. Fishy.
And like Draka died and had enough time to actually really know the Primus, but it was only like probably the same time frame, not much longer after that.
Well, we don't know. We don't know if she actually does know the Primus. I don't think there's anything to confirm.
I thought the way she talked, it made it sound like she did.
The way he talked,
because she talked about him disappearing after.
Yeah, but I kind of got the impression that was just what she'd been told, rather than like that she'd seen it. Because she had the close bond with the dude who was the Margrave of the house that she was in before. You know, the House of Eyes, was it?
Yeah.
I think that was more the bond that she had. I don't think she knew the Primus. Could be wrong.
Maybe I was reading that wrong.
One of us definitely was.
It seemed like to me that Draka knew the Primus, and then he disappeared, and then the Rune Carver was there at like the same time, getting everything stolen.
Maybe. Right, so I think we need to thank our patrons and wrap this one up.
Yep. So, as always, thank you to our lovely patrons, especially our AOTC patrons. And we've got, on our AOTC patrons, we've got, obviously, Mud from Gratz. We've got Sky Shrouder, Gershom, Anna, and Discordian Kitty. Thank you guys so much for the support. And if you want to join them in supporting us, you can join at patreon.com/LFRWowcast. You can also find us on Twitter. I'm at Sarith. You can find your chorus at Smiting Titan. And you can find the show at LFR Wowcast. Thank you guys for listening. Thanks for the questions. This was a lot of fun. I think we'll have to do it again sometime.
It was. And we will be back next week, hopefully, with part 3 of Arthas.
All right. Thank you guys so much. Bye-bye.
See ya.
I am very uncomfortable with the energy that we've created in the studio today.